Boom. If you guys own an Amazon FBA business and you're thinking about selling it, I got the man. He's in charge of the team here at EmpireFlippers.com. I met Gregory years ago in Vietnam, also at Nomad Summit. They've been multi-year sponsors of the Nomad Summit, which you guys haven't been to. You should probably look that up and go buy and sell quality online businesses. So if you have an FBA business, you can list it here for sale for like a 20, 30, sometimes up to 40x the monthly profit multiplier. And so I want to bring Gregory on to share tips, tricks, things that you should know, things that you should avoid if you own an FBA business and you're thinking about selling it or just like almost ready to. So yeah, Greg, what's up?
Yeah, Riley, it's good to hang out again. Not a lot of people know this, but when I first got hired with Empire Flippers like 5 years ago, and I was still up in Alaska, I was researching Vietnam because I had no idea about it. And your YouTube channel is actually the first like thing I saw about Vietnam. Like, oh, cool. I still remember like randomly running into you. I forget where we were, but I was like, oh, wait a second, that is Riley.
Okay. Yeah.
It's funny how that works. Small world.
Nice. Yeah, I started doing the vlogs when I was living in Saigon. So yeah, it makes sense. Nice. So you're in Vietnam now?
I am. I'm in Ho Chi Minh City. You're in Vietnam. Tend to live in Southeast Asia, but as you know, as a digital nomad, we're all over the place. At least we were before 2020. So hopefully that happens again to where all the borders start opening up. It looks like things are starting to open up, so that's great.
Yeah. Sweet. So, yeah, pretty broad topic today. Just value dump on FBA people. So, yeah, I guess wherever you want to start.
Sure. I mean, I guess the best news if you're an Amazon FBA seller that's going on right now is it's something we've been calling the season of the seller. And for years, I've been talking about how it's really a buyer's market. Like in terms of acquiring businesses, it's such great deals, and there are still great deals. But right now is like, I've never seen a better time to sell an FBA business. Like you mentioned earlier at the start of this, like the 20, 30, 40X, right? Well, we've been selling some of these FBA businesses for over 60X. A lot of them are moving into 50, especially in the 7-figure range, but even on the lower end. There's so much new money that's coming in to acquire FBA brands, whether it's aggregators, ultra high net worth individuals, private equity and family offices, and just people sick of like, say, commercial real estate investing. They are starting to come into this place as well. So if you're like, that's the good news. I'm bringing the good news. If you're an FBA entrepreneur and you want to make a life-changing exit, there's never been a better time than today with all this confluence of market events that are happening.
Got it. Season of the seller. Okay. Yeah, I've been hearing this as well. So, yeah, someone that's got an FBA business that's thinking about selling, or like, what should they start to prepare, or I guess you know all the biggest mistakes, or what are some of the things that they should pay attention to?
The most important thing is the most boring thing, and and most people don't do it because of that. And that is just fixing your profit and loss statement. That is like the most boring advice, but also the most powerful advice. A lot of e-commerce entrepreneurs, whether it's FBA or Shopify, or really any kind of e-commerce, this tends to be like their Achilles heel because most of us are creative. We're not exactly great with spreadsheets a lot of the time. So we're not the best bean counters. So what my biggest advice to any FBA entrepreneur, if you want to sell your business, like if you use a broker like us, we can help you with this. It's no problem. We do it for free. But if you want to use someone else or do a private sell, it's worth your money to hire a professional e-commerce bookkeeper to build that P&L, because we've run into this issue before where an FBA entrepreneur would be in our vetting process and we build their P&L for them. We build them from scratch because of this known thing where there's often mistakes in them. and they're surprised that they're actually making less money than they thought they were, right? When you tally up all the expenses and all this stuff, and that can have a significant impact on your valuation. And there's this other thing too of cash basis accounting versus accrual. Most entrepreneurs do cash based because it makes sense, it's easy to do, but you actually lose out on your valuation by doing that, sometimes significantly. It depends, of course, on each business, but accrual typically is better. And this kind of like boring stuff is probably one of the best like money saving things you can do to get a better exit.
Got it. Sweet. Get your P&L. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good thing. Yeah. We do have an accountant. So that's good to have on hand. Okay. Sweet. I guess what's the next biggest thing?
The next biggest thing is, and this only applies to first-time sellers, really. Most people who have sold multiple brands don't have this issue. It can still happen, but it's rare. And that's what I call emotional equity. So basically that's like you and me, right? Like, let's say we were still in the 9 to 5 grind, all that kind of stuff that we hated, that we left to go do the digital nomad life, right? So our businesses in this sense has this emotional meaning to us, and that has given us freedom, travel the world, go do things we never thought we were going to be able to do in our lives. And it could be the other way around too, like where it gets rid of our commute, spend more time with our family, all that kind of stuff. This creates what I call emotional equity. So a lot of first-time sellers, they run into this issue where they go to sell their business and they way overvalue what their business is. They think their business is like the next big thing, all this stuff. And when a buyer comes in to give them an offer, and it's often a solid, reasonable offer, they feel insulted because like, I can't believe you would even offer me this low amount, you know? And it's because of this emotional equity, this emotional bias we have in our business. And buyers are not like, they're happy for you, right? They're super happy that this happened for you, but they're not buying the business based off the memories that your business helped you create. They're buying it off of a colder arithmetic, right? So again, it comes back down to those numbers. And that kind of segues into another issue that I sometimes see happen. It's rare, but sometimes it happens, where a entrepreneur, they'll think, okay, valuations are based off net profit. Like that's the main ingredient for it. So how do I get my net profit up? I know I'm going to fire my whole staff and do all the work myself. So I'm going to save all this money, and that's going to increase my valuation. Or I'm going to stop using my 3PL and ship all the products to my home and package it myself and send it out that way to save money. It'll increase my valuation. Like, in a sense, they're right on a technical level, but what this does is it makes your business way less attractive. And so you're just going to get discounted anyways, as if you had those things anyhow. So because they got to go set it up. So in fact, you're probably going to get discounted even worse and make less money when you do that, because it's just way less attractive. And those are some like really common newbie mistakes you see in the field.
Okay. Sweet. Nice. Yeah. I can semi-relate to the emotional equity thing, you know, starting a brand. It's like, yeah, you build, it's like your baby. You're like,
right.
Give it a, you think it's like, yeah, you love it, but yeah. And at the end of the day, like, you gotta, you know, if you're selling it, you should have a good reason to sell it. Have a plan, have a reason to sell it.
For sure. I tell people, so people come up to me and they'll be like, when's the best time to sell? Like that, like there's always there's this magical month, like this is the perfect month to sell your business in. Only sell during this month. That's the answer they're looking for, right? But the real honest truth is there is no perfect time to sell your business. And the only time you should ever consider selling your business, even with valuations as high as they are right now, I would still tell people don't sell unless it gets you closer to a personal or business goal in life. And ideally both, right? Ideally it should lead you down towards some other goal, because if you have no goal for the reason why you're selling the business, you're going to sell the business and get really depressed. You'll be happy for like 5 minutes, and then you'll be wondering like, what do I do now? You feel kind of like purposeless and listless, right? So I always tell people sell based off your goals. If it gets you closer, that's usually a good time to sell.
Yeah, have a goal, have a plan, for sure. Okay, cool. Any other kind of top 5 tips that they should be looking out for?
Yeah, when it comes to negotiations, and this kind of plays into some of the other stuff I said, be flexible. So if you want like the best amount of money in your pocket at the end of the day, like upfront, say you had $1 million Amazon FBA business and you wanted as much money upfront with as little of an earnout as possible, well, you might need to lower what your price point you actually sell at. You might need to sell that business for say $700 or $800,000, where you can get all that cash up front that way. If you want to sell for the maximum amount, then you might need to accept some kind of earnout. Maybe you accept $650,000 up front, and then the rest paid out over a period of time, 6 months or a year or something like that. This is an interesting one because you see it even on the high end, not just on the lower end, where like an FBA business that might be worth like $200,000, $400,000. We've seen it even on like 8 million, 10 million, $12 million deals we've sold. And these like people sometimes are arguing over 10 or $30,000, which is not a lot when there's like 10 million or $12 million riding on the line, right? But this lack of flexibility is something you see that sellers have, where they approach negotiations almost like this collab, or not collaboration, like a showdown, like, you know, like one of those old Westerners, like who can sling the gun first at each other, right? And that's like such the wrong approach. Like, we're entrepreneurs, we wear marketing hats all the time. We ask ourselves copywriting questions like, what's my customer's pain and pleasure so I can sell this product better, right? But when it comes to selling your business, a lot of times the entrepreneur takes that copywriter hat off and just throws it in the trash, and they never think about like, what does the buyer want out of this, right? What's their desires? Like, what's the pain that's driving them to buy my business? And that's the better way to approach negotiations, is having flexibility and looking at it as a collaborative event where there's not a win-lose situation, it's a win-win situation. And the most successful deals I've ever seen are almost always going to be a win-win situation where the buyer and seller become almost like good friends. You know, like it's very rare that if a deal went really well, that they don't continue to communicate and maybe even start their own projects together down the road.
Nice. So the negotiation process, is that like, are they just chatting back and forth on like phone calls and email, or is it like between you guys, or are you guys in the middle?
Yeah, so if you use a broker like us, we're obviously going to be there to help you. So if you're private, you don't get that luxury. You don't get to kind of know the inside baseball about the other guy to help you figure out what's a good offer, a bad offer. But if you use us, how the process works is you'll at first be communicating with just us, where we'll ask you questions, right? We'll get a huge list of questions, all answered. And the reason why we do that is just so you don't get bothered by us asking you the same question over and over again when buyers are asking us, right? So we try to field most of the questions on your behalf so you can keep doing what you do best, which is running the business, right? We want to make it as seamless as possible to selling your business, which, you know, realistically, that's impossible. Selling a business is in of itself a challenge, even a smooth transaction, right? It's not as simple as going to like the 7-Eleven and buying a drink or something like that. It's more complex, less complex than the paperwork you do to buy a new car, though, or a house, but it's still like a challenging transaction, right? So what ends up happening from there is we always sometimes get questions we don't know how to answer. We'll bring them to you, and eventually there will be someone that we've qualified on your behalf that this person has the money, they're serious, they're the right person. Let's have a buyer seller call. So we bring the seller and the buyer together. Our salesperson will coach the seller on who the buyer is, what they want, and will help mediate that conversation. Usually there's not like an offer on that call. Usually the offer and negotiations really begins afterwards, but sometimes it can happen on the call itself. And that's where our business brokers come into play, our business advisors come into play to help you guide you through that whole process. And at the end of the call, they'll tell you what they thought. Like our people will tell you what they thought on a one-on-one coaching session, and they'll follow up with the buyer on your behalf. And that's the way it typically goes for I think the number for if you're selling a 7-figure Amazon FBA business, on average, you're looking at between 6 to 8 buyer seller calls to sell one of those. So the closer you get to that magical 6 to 8 numbers, the closer you are probably to selling the deal. And usually you have multiple offers at that price point. It's such a competitive asset for buyers right now.
Nice. Okay, cool. And then, so for people that don't know, how do your guys' fees work? Is there like upfront fees for this whole process? And then I know you take a commission, and what is that commission?
Yeah, great question. So this is a harder question for me to answer now, actually, than it used to be, because our commissions have recently changed. So it used to be a tiered structure, but now it's a blended commission. So we have a URL where you can go to just empireflippers.com/commission, and you'll be able to use the calculator and see for yourself what our commission is. It's a lot fairer to sellers, because what used to happen was like anything underneath $1 million would be 15%. And then once you get above that $1 million, it would be like 12%. And it keeps going down from there. So all the way up to, over $10 million, it used to be 2% if it was over 10 million. When that's gone up, that was like a fee just to get people like involved with us, right? For the 8-figure businesses. So that has gone up. But it was unfair for sellers who are right on that cusp, say like $90,000 or $80,000 or $950,000 to charge them the full 15%. They're so close to the next break. So we changed it to a commission calculator, or a blended commission rather.
Got it. Sweet. Yeah. This would be sweet for my agency, a little calculator. I got to figure out how to put that into my website. Like an automatic quote. So easy.
Yeah. So that's pretty new. I think that's been out for maybe 3 weeks, maybe a month. It's been out for a little bit over a month, I think now, but still relatively new.
Cool. Sweet. Cool. Okay. Yeah. This is all great. Yeah. What else? Any other big things that sellers should look out for that you haven't mentioned?
Yeah. So again, this applies if you're like a high 6-figure seller or a 7-figure seller in terms of your valuation. It could apply in the lower end too. It's just less rare, or less common, I should say. And that is, but just watch out for the narrative. Like there's a lot of people who suffer from what I call the off-market fallacy. And this sounds super self-serving, but the off-market fallacy is basically where people don't use a broker because they don't want to pay that commission, right? They think they'll be able to get a better deal if they go private. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes that is truly true. But in my experience, that is almost never the case. It's very rare. And there's a lot of people out there with a lot of money that want you to think that, so that way they can buy your deal for super cheap. So to give you a general overview of how it goes, buyers like to buy off-market deals for pretty much one reason. There's other reasons, but this is like really like 95% why they buy off-market. And by off-market, I mean don't use a broker. And that's because they are hoping to find an entrepreneur that doesn't know what their business is worth, doesn't know the valuation. And that is perfect because that means they can probably get a sweet deal once they get through the emotional equity thing, wear the person down. Now they're going to sell it for less. And it's a great deal for them. But if the seller knows what their valuation is, like truly knows, then the buyer has to pay that premium. But there's one other thing to add into this mix, and that's the idea of competition. So if you sell off market, even when you know what your true valuation is, say like you actually understand how the valuation works, you figured it out, you got the valuation for your business, you're still at a big disadvantage because if you sell privately, you don't get to make the forces that be compete for your business. So to put it into a concrete example of a deal we just sold, there was this business owner, he got hit up by one of these buyers, and they're always super urgent is how they position everything. So they'll be like, all right, we are going to give you $1.4 million. You have 3 days to decide. Like, whoa, that's a lot of money, right? For most of us, that's a lot of money to receive just like that. And you have 3 days to decide. That's a ton of pressure on a FBA seller. And I don't know a lot of people who would say no to that deal because it's so high pressure. And that's what they want, again, to try to make it so you don't go on the market. But this seller, he came to us, he knew us, we talked to him about it, and we're like, well, we're pretty sure we can get you a better deal. And so he came onto the marketplace, and we ended up selling that same business just a few weeks later for $2.1 million. He got $1.8 million up front. So he got $400,000 more in his wallet up front in his pocket than the entirety of the deal that was underneath the urgency clause, right? And not just that, he also got uncapped revenue sharing as long as they were reaching a certain revenue milestone for, I think it was like 3 years. So this guy got a way better deal by using a broker and like he paid us a bigger commission than he would have paid us at 1.4, obviously, right? But he ultimately ended up walking away with way more money because he didn't fall into the off-market fallacy. And that it's interesting because our buyers are our competitors in that way. They don't want people to think this is a good idea to go to the market because they want to get the sweet deal. But if you're a seller, if you don't tap into that competition network somehow, you're doing yourself a big disservice when it comes to selling your business.
Nice. So something I'm curious about is you mentioned they had a revenue share for 3 years. Is that because the seller becomes involved in running the business for the next 3 years? And is that typical for the seller to be involved in some way after the sale for a while?
It's very uncommon for a seller to be involved with the business afterwards. There are some people that like that. So what they'll do is they'll give the seller some equity so they still have some of the upside in the business. In this case, there was no equity. I think it was just revenue share. And in this case, the seller didn't have to run the business. The reason why that happened was because they had, I think, like 25 offers or some crazy number that came in. And each offer was trying to outcompete each other to get them over the line to sell with them. Because when you tap into the buyer network, the buyers are very competitive. Like we have buyers that tell us that, hey, if this buyer over here makes an offer, just let me know. I don't care what business it is. If they made their offer, I'm going to beat that offer. So let me know. And so every time that buyer does, we tell them, and then they start competing, and that brings in more frenzy. And so the deals get better and better for the seller. So in this case, I could be remembering it wrong, but I'm almost positive the seller's not working on the business. It's just a pure milestone play.
Just a pure better offer. Just we'll offer you this.
Yeah, just
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's sweet. It's like yeah, that would be kind of cool as a seller. Then you like, I mean, I guess you have a little bit of emotional equity still invested in it. They're like you're rooting for your business to grow now because you still get more money if it grows.
Right. That by the way, that's a great little buyer strategy on the newbie buyer stuff, is like finding some kind of upside for the seller. If you think the seller is like competent and you can really work with them and develop a relationship, because that does keep them aligned with your business success. Definitely makes it easier for them to accept your Skype call at like 2 a.m. like, hey, something's wrong with my inventory or something like that, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, a small rev share or equity to be an advisor, if that makes sense, or at the very least something like that. Okay. This is money. Yeah. What else? Any other big mistakes or things that sellers should look out for, even since the beginning when they're like building their company?
Yeah, I mean, and this is a common one. We all make it just because it's annoying to do this. For most of us, at least, we find it annoying. And that's just building out SOPs, standard operating procedures. Like from day one, I think it's a very useful mindset to think that you're building something to sell. Even if you have like generally no interest in selling your business, you should still build it that way, because that allows you to look on the outside of your business while you're inside of it at the same time. And that allows you to think like, okay, well, how can I make this more like an assembly line approach versus like the custom artist that's like has to paint a new masterpiece every time I do something, right? Like, how can I just make a clear road that I can walk down anytime I want? And think of your business like that. Like each SOP is this clear road that has this clear input and a clear output. And the SOP should be so easy to follow along that you can give it to someone who's relatively brand new, doesn't know what they're doing, and they could read that SOP and do about 80% of a job as what you can do, about as good, right? Obviously, they're not going to be 100%, but if they can do that with that kind of like, not knowing anything just based off the SOP, that's a very successful SOP. And while that doesn't necessarily create, an increase in your valuation, it does in a subtle way. So on a technical level, it does nothing for your valuation, but on the subtle level, what it does, it allows you to grow a much cleaner business and grow quicker, which obviously is going to impact your valuation. and it opens yourself up to a lot more buyers. So like, let's say you had a small FBA business, $150,000, $200,000. Those people buying those businesses tend to be your smaller time investors who might just be getting into the game for the very first time, right? So they may never have ran an FBA business, and they're looking at a $200,000 business over here with no SOPs and a $200,000 business over here with SOPs. Well, most buyers are pretty niche agnostic, so that's not going to be the selling point typically. They're going to buy the SOP one more likely, all things being equal, because it's just more attractive. There's a system there that they can plug in. So,
yeah, people want to buy. They want to buy passive investments, or as much as passive as they can get them. So, yeah, have a machine running. Yeah, like this brand pretty much runs itself. It's got the SOPs. It's got the team, the contractors, employees in place. Which brings up my next question I was going to ask is, so normally, like I have a business, I'm going to sell it. I have these employees or freelancers / contractors in place. Normally, all those same freelancers just move right over to the new owner, right?
Not always. It really depends. A lot of times they do, a lot of times they don't. Sometimes there's a point of negotiation. So we've seen all kinds of ways people do it. For instance, there's this one person that sold a lot of businesses with us. They spent a lot of time cultivating a team for across their brands. And so when they go to sell a business, they'll often like create redundancies that will go with the business. So his core team will stay with him for his suite of brands that he's running. And then there is a team specifically built for this brand that will go to the new owner. And that sometimes happens. That's a little bit of a rarer case, but that's one way to do it. It depends on what level the business is too. So if it's, again, above 7 figures, most of the buyers buying those businesses already have teams in place. They'll probably still absorb your team because they like to do acquisition hires like that, but it won't be a necessary thing. Like if you don't want to give them your team, you won't have to. But it just really depends on the business. It can go either way, to be honest.
Okay, sweet. Okay, interesting. And co-owners, I guess they would kind of, yeah, if you're in equity, that would kind of be up to you if you own. If there's multiple owners of the business, of course, it would be your guys' decision. Okay, cool. Yeah. This is great. We're at about 30 minutes ish. Any other big juicy things that we haven't mentioned yet that sellers should know?
Well, I think and it is just kind of like what I said at the beginning. Like I think the market is heated up in such a dramatic way. Like if you're building an Amazon FBA business, like you probably have at least I'm doing some like predictions here, so I'll probably going to be like wrong next week or something. But like I'm pretty sure these valuations are here to stay for at least the next 2 years because there's so many people that are getting into the space for the very first time. Part of that is driven by the pandemic. Like, for instance, the commercial real estate investors, a lot of them are coming over from that space because of the pandemic. They're looking for yield, and online businesses give amazing yield, right? If you know what you're doing. And now you have all these aggregators rising up, not just in America, but in Europe. We've seen 3 of them become, I think it's 3 now have become billion-dollar companies or unicorns. Yeah. And a lot of them started off buying businesses from us, right? So if you're an FBA entrepreneur, like now is a great and exciting time. Like if you're thinking like, oh shit, I just started, I'm going to miss out on this. Like, I don't think you will. I think as long as you build a solid, clean business, you don't do any of the like, you know, black hat tricks or whatever, you keep a white hat business that is building a real brand, then you have an amazing, like potentially life-changing opportunity here when you go to sell your business in the next 2 years, because 2 years is plenty of time to build up a solid, profitable FBA business. So that's what I would say. And the final thing I would say is if you want to like really supercharge your wealth, selling your business should really be the start of your business. So a lot of, like I mentioned earlier, entrepreneurs think like, sell my business, I'm done, you know, but that's really the start of what you can do, because when you sell your business, you open up these doors of possibilities that allow you to basically do things you never could before. So for example, I have friends that have done what I call the asset flywheel, where they go and sell their business, they get this huge life-changing load of capital, then they go and buy two smaller businesses, build those up, sell those two businesses, take that capital, repeat the process. And each sell is the spinning of this flywheel. You do that 3-4 times, you are at a pretty solid net worth in your life. And you can do that pretty quickly. You can do that within 5 years. But the first part of that journey is really selling the business, which you're selling your first one, which takes the longest amount of time because you're building it from scratch. But if you, after you take that capital and you go and buy businesses, you get to skip that whole startup phase and just focus on the leverage phase, which is why so many people buy businesses, right? So we have a lot of sellers that end up becoming buyers who end up becoming sellers, and the process just repeats.
Yep. Nice. Yeah, that's yeah, I saw your YouTube video about the flywheel thing, and that's a good segue into this. If you guys don't know, Empire Flippers, Greg runs their YouTube channel, and go check it out,
Yeah,
guys.
it's my part-time hobby.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, here we go. Yeah, like this one, wealth acquisition strategy, and he's got a bunch of videos talking about all the things. So if you guys have more questions, that would be a great place to go check out. Starting an Amazon FBA business that makes money from day one, 4 fundamental. He's got it all. He's got his studio set up there in Ho Chi Minh, and yeah, this is what he's doing. He is the man. What is your, I guess, official role at EF?
I'm the head of marketing, so I lead the entire marketing team, managing a bunch of creatives, a bunch of data analytics, email, all that kind of stuff. So my main background is content marketing. I started off as the blogger, but now I'm the head of marketing.
Got it. And yeah, if you guys don't know, they also sell, buy and sell content marketing sites and Kindle businesses and any online business that generates a passive cash flow. You can sell those.
Yeah. We just actually sold a few 7-figure Kindle businesses, actually, which I'm a writer. I love writing. I just find that business model so interesting. It's so different than a lot of the other business models we sell. But yeah, we sell anything that, as long as it's a digital online business, we can sell it.
Yeah, digital, and it's making profit, and the same multiplier, I guess, applies for their Kindle.
It can. It like, obviously Kindle is going to have a smaller buyer pool, right? Just because it's not as popular, not as well known, so it's less frothy. But in general, over 2020, we saw the multiples of every business model get a pretty considerable bump. A big part of that is like offline businesses, for instance, like your local spa or something. When they go sell their business a few years ago, they would get a better multiple than a digital business, but that's not really the case anymore. They're getting either the same, or the digital business is getting a much higher multiple now. So pretty much there's a bump across all business models.
Yep. Okay, sweet. And then so there's also like blogs / affiliate sites. Are those, you guys have those too, right?
Oh yeah, we sold in 2020. We sold like 120 of those content businesses. So it might have been a little bit more. It might have been 123. But yeah, we sell millions of dollars of content businesses every single year. We sell millions of FBA and millions of dollars of other businesses. So we're not just an FBA only shop. I talk about FBA a lot lately just because it's so hot. But yeah, we sell everything.
Okay, sweet. Well, there you go, guys. Share this with a friend, maybe someone who has a blog or affiliate site, and maybe they're want to entertain what it would look like to flip that and then start the flywheel of wealth. And yeah, so there you go. Check them out on YouTube, Empire Flippers, and empireflippers.com. Greg, I appreciate it. I'll see you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Maybe probably in Southeast Asia at some time when we bump again.
I look forward to it.
All right. See you guys. Boo.